What's up, guys? Andrew Cooper here, Fantasy Alarm. And after going through all the data, watching all 300 plus routes, I unfortunately might be jumping to sell Xavier Legette in my Dynasty leagues. Keyword being jumping, as I'll explain in this video. But here's what we did. Just like with Roma Dunze and Marvin Harrison Jr. before, go check those videos out after this if you haven't. We went through and I combed all the data. Shout out to Pro Football Focus, Fantasy Points, Player Profiler, Fantasy Alarm, StatHead, you name it. And we went through all that to see what the profile was like. Then I watched all 300 routes on the NFL film room to figure out what's going on. And now I'm going to present as much of it as I can to you here in a quick video so you know what's going on. And then you can make the call for yourself, whether you like Xavier Legette or not in your dynasty leagues. So let's get into it. First things first, rookie that was drafted in the first round. He was thrown immediately into the hardest role for a wide receiver, split end, right? So he was playing the vast majority of his snaps out wide and tethered. When he was in line, he was often set up as a big slot with his foot tethered to the line. Here's what that looks like. It's still a difficult situation because, as you can see, the other guys have their foot off the back of the line here. They're a couple steps back. They're not susceptible to the jam there. They can go in motion. He's in a tougher role here. Now, it's not ideal role for fantasy because of that, but there are situations that are great for fantasy. The fact that you typically stay on the field for a huge snap share when you're in that role. Also, when you get down to the red area, guys like that often are put into one-on-one situations, and they are bigger guys where they can catch end zone targets. I mean, he led the team in end zone targets with 9. He had caught 4 of them. Here's an example right here of him lining up on the outside. He's at the bottom of the screen here. This is the broadcast video. We do a lot of all 22, but this is the broadcast. There he is at the bottom, right? And it's not man to man, but he goes up, makes the play. So guys in that role, like Mike Evans, get those situations more often, which is something we do want to see. In terms of his usage, they had him running a decent amount of go routes, which he was not good on those routes. He actually, in fact, only caught 1 of 17 targets on go routes, which is obviously not good, right? He did catch a lot of the out breaking routes and the inward breaking routes. That's where he had the most success. So when you go to a site like Fantasy Points, his average separation score overall is not good. He was like wide receiver 92. On the go routes, it was like 0.0 Blutowski, right? Like 0.05. But on the out breaking routes and in breaking routes, it was 0.25, which isn't good based on their metrics, but it's obviously better than where he landed. And he did have some good routes in that capacity. Here's an example of one against the Saints where he does, and this is against man to man. He's down in the big slots. Sorry, yeah, he's coming big slot and see at the bottom of the screen, right? Makes the cut, goes out wide, makes the play. So although his profile coming out in the draft was that he was not a good route runner, I thought he was okay here. You know, he definitely is good off the line, off the jam, right? He's big, he's fast, he's physical. His hands and legs move in unison. Here's an example of him getting off the jam, which, I mean, that's half the battle. He's at the bottom of the screen right there. And watch how quickly he gets off here. It wasn't often that he get tangled up with in the first 5 yards, which, I mean, teams try to just get physical with these rookies. It didn't work as much with him. So that was actually okay. Also, I went through to check out some of the deeper routes that he did run, the go routes, just to see who was actually winning any of them. Because, like, statistically speaking, you would think no, he was not. There were some where he had some good moves. He has a hesitation move that he used in the Buccaneers game. He also in the same Chiefs game. He's in the bottom of the screen here. I mean, he wins this route. This is a route win. The ball doesn't come his way because it gets thrown up at the top. But I mean, his guy almost hits the ground there. So honestly, he does need to improve in separation. He does need to improve in route running, but that's not the end of the world for him. The big problem that I ran into that we're going to get to, that's really the crux of this video, is the catch point. And at the catch point, he does something oddly virtually every time, most times, whether he needs to or not, which is jump. And that is just it's bad fundamentals. It hopefully can be corrected, but there were so many glaring examples of this guy jumping. And the thing is, when he needs to jump, those plays look great. Like when he has to make a leaping catch, he can go up and make them. You saw the earlier one, the first clip we showed. Here's one against the Broncos, right? Where he's going to be end up towards the bottom of the screen, down at the 50-yard marker down there, and watch. I mean, it's a good throw, leaping catch, right? Awesome. It's what you want to see from a big bodied wide receiver. The problem that you run into as you go through the tape and watch this guy is that he's doing that quite a bit when he doesn't need to, right? Here's an example on a touchdown, right? Which, touchdown. So everyone's excited. It looks like a great play, but watch how much unnecessary movement there is here, moving the ball around, leaving his feet. There's been a number of guys that have done that. I'm going to show this one again, just for example's sake. Just watch him here. He's open, and the ball, like, you just reach up and catch this ball. You don't need to jump. You don't need to do any of that. And as I'll show you here, this time it worked, right? But there are times where it puts him in a bad situation, and we've seen this from a number of wide receivers in the past. I mean, the Panthers had one, Brandon LaFell, that was just no matter what, he was just doing a little too much at the catch point, did not have good body awareness, one foot always coming down out of bounds. He did improve a little bit, but he never really got to the next level. Another guy that really reminds me of is Preston Williams. Preston Williams got a little hype in dynasty leagues, but he could make incredible catches, but there were definitely times where too much movement. Here's an example just like that one that I remember that I pulled up here where he almost ends up out of bounds because he jumps for no reason. I mean, that ball is at his chest and he jumps up and almost ends up out the back of the end zone. Here, I'll show you one more time. I mean, there's no reason to jump. And some guys just have that in them where they do that. If you don't think those two plays are similar, if you don't think the two plays are similar, here, look at same thing. You can watch it again. You can watch it in slow mo. I mean, like I flipped it so you could see it's the same thing, right? And the problem that you run into with the jumping, besides the fact that sometimes they can look pretty silly. I mean, Jonathan Mingo would do it too. If you want to go multiple Panthers examples, right? He's already been traded out, but he had that one play. I should have pulled that one up. Maybe I will for the next one. But he jumps literally out of bounds when the ball is like in his hands. So I'll put it in the article, that one, so you guys can check that out. All this stuff, as always, just like Marvin Harrison, Roma Dunze, it's up in article form, and I do the video just because I know some people do content different ways. I can't really show clips in a podcast, so this is how we're doing these. The video, I mean, the article, I took them and turned everything into GIFs, so it's a lot easier to absorb that way. If you want to go back and watch any of these plays, they're all in there. That's at fantasyalarm.com. So yeah, so that's pretty ugly, and there's multiple reasons why jumping at the catch point when you don't need to is a problem. The one of the biggest ones here is that you lose any ability to gain yards after the catch, right? Because you're jumping, you're slowing yourself down, you're coming down awkwardly a lot of times. It's so hard to catch the ball in air and then land and then run, right? You want to be catching these balls in stride. And with Xavier Legette, according to fantasy points, he was wide receiver 279 in yak per reception. For those keeping track at home, there's only 32 teams. And I think one of the big explanations is this guy a lot of times is jumping, right? He's not breaking tackles. He's not doing, and here's an example right here of one that maybe he could have gone away, maybe not. But just watch when you run a slant like this, kind of it's a bit of a hesitation slant where he goes. It's not quite a post, but watch here. Some wide receivers can turn plays like this. He's at the very top of the screen. All right. He's going to come right over the 40s towards the flag in the middle. Like, some guys can make that catch in stride and they're gone. But if you sit there and you jump, you're slowing yourself down. Even if he got away from the other guy, the safety would have been there. Like, that's the difference between AJ Brown turning a short play into a monster touchdown versus a guy like this that just he doesn't have the fundamentals figured out right now, especially in that capacity. So the other part that you run into is timing, right? Like, it's already difficult enough to catch a football when it's when guys are all over you. When it's a play where you need to jump, you still need to time that correctly. And now you're adding timing to the equation. So when you don't need to jump, you're still putting timing into the equation where it doesn't need to be there, right? Like, here's an example just of Xavier Legette in that same game where you can see the timing isn't right, making it a much harder catch. Whether or not he needed to jump on this one is up for debate, but whether the timing was off is not up for debate. The timing, he missed the timing there and was trying to catch the ball on the way down. And it's another part of that formula that you just don't want, right? And we see a ton of it here with what he's doing, and it leads him to have a lot of catches where he's not catching the ball at the right point, right? Like if you jump up to make a leaping catch and you can only catch it at its highest point, then that's the only option. But sometimes there's different options. I mean, you can try and let it come into your body, you can basket catch it, you can reach out and catch it. A lot of times when he's jumping, he's not jumping up and catching it at its highest point. He's setting himself up to do a basket catch or let the ball hit his body. Like for instance, right here, he's at the top of the screen, right? At sorry, Thielen's covering him right now, but at the very top, he should be jumping up and catching this at his highest point. He's jumping up and basket catching it, bringing the ball down, letting the defender get his hands on it. That gets knocked away, right? Like if he's going to jump all the time, he's really got to figure out how to jump and catch balls. And I'll tell you, it's not just on these like glaring obvious ones. You go through and the more these plays you look at with Xavier Legette, the more times where you're noticing that he's adding unnecessary movement at the catch point, and it's related to jumping often. Like here's a really nuanced one. The last clip I'll show here of a slant in this Eagles game. He's right at the 50. I think he's actually the guy. Right at the 50-yard line, and watch just see how I mean the defender makes good contact here at the right time. Watch this again though, and watch his feet. The ball comes in, it's hitting him in the chest. And it's sometimes it's okay to catch with your body on situations like this. I'd rather have him have his hand out front. Why is he leaving his feet? Why are both of his feet coming off the ground here? I worry with guys like this that they're never going to be able to correct those fundamentals and it's going to haunt them for pretty much the rest of their career. Now, here's the thing. I do like the size and speed. I do like his ability to get off the jam. I like his route running is not as bad as you might think. It's this one part of his game that if he doesn't figure it out, he's not going to be in this league very long because he according to Pro Football Focus dropped 14% of his passes and a lot of it was based on this. It was him messing up at the catch point because he's not putting himself in the best position, not using good awareness and the ball ends up hitting his shoulders, the ball ends up hitting his pads and a lot of times you watch it and you'll say, "Oh wow, that was a tough catch. I wish he would have caught it, but he didn't." A lot of times it's a tough catch because he's making it tougher on himself, right? It's okay to keep your feet on the ground and catch the ball in stride and keep moving. Now, for me, you could say that he's a hold. Like this is the way I look at it. You go to Alex Korf's uh, peaked in high school dynasty trade charts, and they show that Xavier Legette is worth a second round pick right now. Now, if you're somebody that needs a running back in this class, and it's a deep running back class, one of the deepest since 2017, I would put him on the block and see if you can trade him for that pick and re-roll there, right? But if no one's willing to give you a second and all that's out there is a third, I don't think you should panic and get rid of a guy for that type of price, right? Because he could figure it out, he could progress, and if he does that, then he could take a big leap forward, right? But for me, I get nervous. I'm a conservative fantasy gamer. I'm willing to sell for that second round pick. Definitely if you can get a first. I mean, he was a first round NFL pick. They don't really have anybody else there pass catcher wise. But for me, like if I'm doing a startup, if I'm trying to buy somebody, I'll buy the cheaper options on this team. Jalen Coker, Jatavian Sanders, maybe even Adam Thielen, just to see how the pecking order shakes out. But for me right now, I'm really concerned with this one aspect of the game for Xavier Legette. So thank you guys for tuning in. Again, there's an article up at Fantasy Alarm that breaks it down with all the numbers, with all the gifts, everything you need to see. And there's other videos up on here already covering Marvin Harrison Jr. and on Roman Dunze, breaking it down with film for you guys. So thank you so much for popping in here. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, and we'll keep covering guys.